Corey Haim's dazzling smile and unforgettable roles once defined an entire era of teen stardom. He was the shy kid from Toronto who never seemed ready for the spotlight, yet somehow ended up in front of every camera in Hollywood. Fans remember him as the wholesome, fresh-faced actor who teamed up with Corey Feldman for instant box office success. But what most people don't realize is that behind those wide smiles and playful banter lurked betrayals, scandals, and a darkness that shadowed Haim's every move. From shady managers to explosive allegations about some of Hollywood's biggest names, Haim's life story was far from the fairy tale fans believed. So, how did it all start for the boy who never even wanted to act in the first place? The shy kid thrust into showbiz. Corey Haim was never that outgoing type. As a child, he was introverted to a startling degree, barely able to speak up in his own home. His mother saw a problem and believed that acting classes might hold the cure. Enrolling him in improv and even mime lessons, she hoped a spotlight might draw her quiet son out of his shell. Ironically, Corey's older sister, Carrie, was the one who truly wanted to audition for TV and film roles. Yet it was Corey, always tagging along, who drew the attention of casting directors. Producers saw something in him, a spark hidden under the timid demeanor, and he was quickly thrust into the world of commercials. Before long, he secured a spot on a Canadian educational show called The Edison Twins. It was an impressive beginning for a kid who barely wanted to speak in front of strangers. But the real leap came in 1984 when Corey landed his very first film role at just 13 years old. It should have been a dream, but from day one, that dream turned into something more like a nightmare. Early success meets first fright. The movie was Firstborn, and in it, Corey played the son of a woman who'd started dating a truly nasty piece of work. Peter Weller, later famous for playing RoboCop, stepped into the role of the violent boyfriend. Off-camera, however, Weller's method acting approach took a very real toll on the barely teenage Corey. On the first day, Haim tried to offer Weller a friendly compliment, only to find himself slammed against a wall and warned never to talk to him again. For a 13-year-old kid who was new to Hollywood, it was terrifying. Weller later blamed his aggression on staying in character, but the emotional damage was done. This harsh welcome to the film world was the first warning sign that behind the glitz, Hollywood could be a dangerous place, especially for a vulnerable teen. Haim's personal life wasn't much better at the time. His parents had divorced in 1982, and tensions at home only magnified his anxieties. Yet, despite the rough start, Corey kept landing roles. People in the industry loved that mixture of boyish innocence and hidden depth. In 1985, he scored a lead part in Silver Bullet, then acted alongside Liza Minnelli in A Time to Live, even winning a Young Artist Award. Suddenly, he was no longer just a shy Canadian kid. He was a rising star with an eye toward Hollywood. Nobody realized how badly that star would burn out. Lucas, The Big Break, and Alleged Abuse. In 1986, Corey Haim starred in Lucas, playing the sweet but awkward title character who yearns for acceptance. This movie elevated his reputation as a serious young actor. However, years later, a swirl of allegations surfaced about what truly went on during filming. Corey Feldman, another teen star of the 80s, has repeatedly claimed that a powerful individual violated Haim on the Lucas set. At one point, Feldman singled out Charlie Sheen, who also appeared in the film. Sheen denied it outright, and surprisingly, Haim's sister, Carrie, came to Sheen's defense, alleging that Sheen was preoccupied with her during filming and wouldn't have had the opportunity to hurt Corey. As time went on, the accusations only multiplied. Another associate, Dominic Brascia, insisted Sheen was indeed guilty of targeting Haim. Haim's mother, Judy, shot back and accused Brascia himself of being the true culprit. The contradictory stories never fully resolved. They only revealed the toxic underbelly of child stardom. Haim never publicly confirmed who was responsible. All that's certain is that something deeply disturbing happened, planting seeds of trauma that would plague him for the rest of his life. Still, in the aftermath of Lucas, Corey Haim soared in popularity. He had that perfect blend of vulnerability and wide-eyed optimism that fans adored. Determined to chase bigger roles and bigger paychecks, he left Canada for Los Angeles, setting the stage for a partnership that would define teen culture: the two Coreys. The two Coreys on top. Joel Schumacher's vampire classic, The Lost Boys, was the meeting ground for Haim and Corey Feldman, sparking a fast friendship. The older cast members of The Lost Boys went clubbing, while the two Coreys mostly stuck together, watching movies and forming a bond that felt brotherly. Viewers couldn't get enough of them. Soon, every magazine cover featured the duo, labeling them teen heartthrobs who represented the fun, carefree spirit of the late 80s. But behind those paparazzi shots and smiling interviews, Corey Haim was unraveling. He was still a shy, damaged teen at heart, now surrounded by an endless supply of money, parties, and temptations. Feldman later recalled that even during their heyday, he knew Haim was struggling. Whether it was personal demons, unhealed trauma, or a creeping dependency on certain substances, something dark lurked beneath the surface. Still, the success kept coming. For a while. Their second film together, License to Drive, was a lighthearted romp that required Haim, ironically, to drive a car on camera. Except he only had a learner's permit, so the producers literally hid a licensed adult in the backseat to keep it legal. That comedic fix masked a more serious reality. By that point, Haim's drug habit was reportedly bad enough that he'd sometimes vanish from the set. Director Greg Beeman later said the two Coreys would goof around and occasionally disappear, but they always returned for filming on time. It was all chalked up to teenage hijinks, until more ominous signs emerged. The addiction spiral and shady management. For Corey Haim, experimentation was quickly turning into a full-blown crisis. After a stint in rehab, he was prescribed medication to help him cope with withdrawal symptoms. That gateway opened the door to heavier and more frequent usage, including an intense reliance on Valium. Some accounts claim he was taking close to 80 pills a day at his lowest point. And once the gossip columns picked up on his struggle, it heavily impacted his marketability. Teen fans who once adored him were put off. Producers worried about insuring him. Desperate to keep afloat, Haim found roles in direct-to-video movies. He even acted alongside his then-girlfriend, Nicole Eggert, of Baywatch fame. But while filming by day, their nights often ended with emergency room visits, as Eggert tried to manage Haim's spiraling behaviors. Despite the turmoil, Haim still had some money stashed away. He decided to purchase a mansion in Hancock Park, Los Angeles, a lavish move for someone whose career was in decline. The problem was that he bought it with his manager, Michael Bass. Bass had spent 2 years in prison for swindling, and it appeared he'd learned no lessons. He rushed the purchase of the house so he and Haim could throw a Toys for Tots charity event, later rumored to be a scam. Tensions between Haim and Bass escalated until Haim tried firing Bass, both from his manager position and literally with a BB gun. The fiasco ended with Haim behind bars and Corey Feldman bailing him out for $250. It was a humiliating chapter that showed how isolated Haim really was. The people closest to him seemed more interested in exploiting him than protecting him. The trouble didn't end there. Lawsuits came knocking, including a major one from Lloyd's of London for failing to disclose his substance issues on an insurance form. Add that to an IRS bill, assorted debts, and a cratered career, and Haim found himself filing for bankruptcy in July 1997. At just 25, the once promising star was effectively blacklisted in Hollywood, clinging to direct-to-video roles and smaller independent projects to pay the bills. Reality TV confessions and crumbling alliances. By the early 2000s, Haim was living in a modest apartment with his mother, a far cry from the opulent mansion he'd once shared with Bass. A 2001 True Hollywood Story laid his struggles bare to the public, painting a grim portrait of desperation. As comedic relief, Haim appeared briefly in David Spade's Dickie Roberts' former child star. a cameo that also featured Corey Feldman and other fated celebrities. It was a gig that provided a little extra income, but it did nothing to revive Haim's reputation. In 2007, however, an opportunity arose, a reality TV series called The Two Coreys, featuring Haim moving in with Feldman and his wife. This was a golden chance to rebuild both his image and finances. But fans who tuned in saw a drastically different Corey Haim, physically changed, visibly unsettled, and unable to hide his inner battles. The biggest bombshell came when he broke down about being abused at 14 by someone in Feldman's social circle, a person Feldman, according to Haim, knew about. The tension between the two Coreys spiked. Feldman looked racked with guilt, and Haim appeared anguished that nobody had protected him. The show didn't last. Audiences were uncomfortable with the rawness of Haim's revelations. After that confession, the rift between the friends grew, and the series ended. While Haim managed to win a Canadian Gemini Award for his involvement, it didn't translate to stable work or financial relief. Strapped for cash, he resorted to selling personal memorabilia online, hunks of his hair, even a tooth. But not every door was closed. Rumors swirled about a Lost Boys sequel, and Haim felt certain his phone would ring any day with an offer. When the call finally came, it wasn't the news he'd hoped for. Final attempts at a comeback and untimely death. The Lost Boys sequel, Lost Boys: The Tribe, was in production, and they had no role for Corey Haim. Hurt but desperate, he accepted a small cameo. Yet, when he showed up, his behavior raised red flags, and the production team sent him home. That blow shook him up enough to pursue a cleaner path. Soon after, Haim began booking multiple low-budget or indie films like Shark City, Crank, High Voltage, American Sunset, and Decisions. Friends say he demanded sets be clean to help him avoid bad influences. By early 2010, Corey Haim seemed to be inching toward stability. Then came a mysterious flu. He was so sick that a doctor made a house call, diagnosing him with nothing more than typical seasonal illness. A few days later, Haim collapsed. He tried to stand up, only to fall to his knees. His mother found him unconscious. Tragically, he never regained consciousness, and paramedics pronounced him gone in the early hours of March 10, 2010. News outlets worldwide reported an accidental OD, but the coroner concluded that Haim died of pneumonia, worsened by a weakened body and the prescription drugs in his system. In the end, there wasn't even enough money to pay for a funeral. Haim's hometown of Toronto covered part of the costs through a special fund for destitute cases, and a memorabilia auction contributed a little more. The funeral home itself ended up shouldering most of the expenses. Hollywood paid brief attention, but the Academy Awards chose not to include him in the In Memoriam segment that year, sparking outrage among fans who believed he at least deserved that recognition. The unanswered questions and legacy. Haim's story didn't rest quietly. 10 years after his passing, Corey Feldman released a documentary that aimed to expose a network of Hollywood predators who allegedly targeted both Haim and Feldman. He claimed a wolf pack was determined to silence them by discrediting their stories. Among these alleged predators, Feldman once again pointed fingers at powerful figures in the industry. Haim was no longer around to confirm or deny any names, leaving fans and observers to piece together the truth from conflicting accounts and scattered clues. Adding another layer of complexity, the producer of The Two Coreys claimed to have a recording of Haim, stating that Michael Jackson had acted inappropriately toward him as well, an accusation that Feldman initially dismissed. Over time, Feldman distanced himself from his earlier defense of Jackson, saying that he discovered more details that changed his perspective. These revelations, if true, would further implicate major Hollywood icons in a pattern of exploiting vulnerable teens. For critics, the claims seemed implausible or designed to garner headlines. For supporters, they fit the ongoing narrative of a hidden, sinister side of the entertainment industry. Whichever viewpoint you take, Corey Haim remains a potent symbol of innocence lost in the glare of fame. Hollywood offered him wealth, acclaim, and possibility, then yanked the carpet out from under him with exploitative managers, rumored predators, and an environment that made it easy for addictions to flourish. He was left without the resources or safeguards a troubled child star so desperately needed. In the end, it wasn't just the pneumonia that took him, but a lifetime of betrayal from those who should have protected him. His name might have been absent from the Oscars memorial, but Corey Haim's story continues to haunt Hollywood. It raises tough questions about how child actors are treated and where we draw the line between method acting and outright harm, or between supportive mentorship and predatory behavior. If there's one lesson to take away, it's that behind every bright spotlight lies a shadow. And sometimes that shadow conceals secrets capable of destroying even the most beloved stars.
More important things happening here. Grow up. I'm here to help. It's not me. You're gonna need as much help as you can get.